The quiet hum of cicadas filled the late afternoon air as a black SUV rolled into the cul-de-sac of Ashcroft Heights, its tires crunching against the pristine gravel. The neighborhood, with its manicured lawns and cookie-cutter homes, exhaled suburban serenity until the vehicle door swung open. Commander Eliza Brooks stepped out. She moved like a shadow molded in tall, alert, with sun-darkened skin and a slight limp that spoke volumes about where she'd been. Her combat boots hit the pavement with a kind of finality that made people look twice. She wore civilian clothes, faded jeans, a fitted black t-shirt, but everything about her screamed military. Precision, power, presence. I stood on the porch, watching her for a heartbeat longer than necessary. After 11 months away, my wife was finally home. But the reunion was far from peaceful. Ashcroft Heights wasn't just any neighborhood, it was HOA territory, and the one pulling the strings was Karen Strickland. Karen had ruled the community like a suburban monarch ever since the last board election. With her icy blonde bob, clipboard obsession, and an uncanny ability to appear whenever rules were being bent, Karen had transformed the HOA into her personal kingdom. She lived 3 doors down, diagonally across from us, and treated every violation like a capital crime. Overgrown hedges, unapproved paint shades, even lawn flamingos. Nothing escaped her crusade for aesthetic harmony. While Eliza was overseas dismantling weapons caches and training foreign agents, Karen had been prowling the neighborhood with a measuring tape and an attitude, and I had been her favorite target. The trouble started small. A letter citing improper garbage can placement. A warning about our mailbox color. Eliza had painted it olive drab in a tribute to her unit. Then came the complaint about the solar panels we'd installed without prior architectural review. I tried reasoning with Karen. She responded with veiled threats about liens and fines. Now, with Eliza back, I thought maybe, just maybe, it would settle down. I was wrong. The moment Eliza parked her matte black Jeep in the driveway, I felt the shift. The air thickened with tension. The Jeep wasn't ordinary. It was a modified tactical 4x4 with reinforced fenders, all-terrain tires, and a subtle federal insignia on the rear. Dust from the Negev still coated its hood like a badge of honor. And from across the street, a curtain twitched. Within minutes, Karen appeared, clipboard in hand, marching with purpose. "Eliza Brooks," she called out, narrowing her eyes at the Jeep. "You can't just bring military vehicles into a residential area. This is a family neighborhood." Eliza didn't even flinch. She tilted her head, eyes unreadable. "It's not military, it's mine." Karen's nostrils flared. "Well, it violates our vehicle aesthetic policy, Section 1.2.1. No aggressive or intimidating designs. I'll have to file a report." "I just got home," Eliza said, voice low. "From Israel. I've been leading federal gun recovery operations. If you think my Jeep is the problem, Karen, your priorities are twisted." Karen blinked, clearly unsure how to respond. She glanced at me as if I might offer backup. I didn't. Karen huffed. "I'll be in touch with the board." She turned on her heel and walked away, but we both knew this was just the beginning. Later that night, Eliza sat on the back porch with a tumbler of water, eyes scanning the tree line like she was still on Overwatch. I joined her in silence. "She's going to push," Eliza murmured, not looking at me. "People like her always do. It's not about the Jeep, it's about control." I nodded. "You ready for that?" She finally looked over, a smile ghosting her lips. "Let her come." From across the street, Karen's porch light flicked on like a signal, and just like that, the battle lines were drawn. The sun hadn't yet crested the rooftops when I heard the knock, sharp, deliberate, echoing through the foyer like a warning shot. I pulled open the front door to find 2 police officers on the stoop, flanked by flashing cruiser lights washing red and blue across the HYD Rangers. My stomach sank. Before I could speak, the senior officer, a tall man with a lined face and tired eyes, held up a hand. "Morning. We received a call about a suspicious vehicle parked on the property, possibly military grade. Caller said the individual may be impersonating military personnel." Behind them, Karen stood on the sidewalk, arms folded and triumphant, wearing a floral blouse and a smug smile of someone who thinks she's saving the neighborhood. Her phone was still in her hand. I blinked. "You're kidding." The younger officer, clearly uncomfortable, glanced down at his notepad. "Is this vehicle yours?" he asked, gesturing toward the Jeep. Before I could respond, Eliza stepped forward from behind me. She was in workout clothes, no black joggers, a tank top, hair tied back in a tight braid. Her posture was relaxed, but her presence carried weight. "Yes," she said calmly, "the Jeep is mine, registered under my name, modified for off-road and tactical conditions. It's not military issue, and I'm not impersonating anyone." The older officer narrowed his eyes. "Can we see identification?" Without hesitation, Elisa pulled out her wallet and handed over her federal ID, Department of Homeland Security. "Federal contractor clearance, active status." The officer scanned it, his brows raising slightly. Karen's voice piped up from the sidewalk. "That doesn't mean she can park that thing here. It looks like it just came from a war zone." "The HOA has rules. She just got back from a war zone," I snapped, turning to face her. "And unless tactical paint jobs are a felony, this isn't your jurisdiction." The senior officer handed back Eliza's ID with a short nod. Everything checks out. No violation of any state or federal law, ma'am, he added, glancing back at Karen. You might want to consider handling HOA disputes through proper channels. This isn't a police matter, Karen sputtered. You mean you're not going to tow it? The officer's face hardened. Ma'am, if you continue making false reports, you will be cited. They left without another word, engines purring down the block. Karen stood frozen, the smile slipping from her face as if it had never belonged there. We didn't gloat, we didn't need to. But it didn't stop there. That afternoon, an official-looking envelope appeared on our doorstep. An HOA citation, violation of community aesthetics, code 12A, 1 aggressive vehicle presence. A fine was attached. Sup was a demand. Remove the vehicle or face escalating action, including legal arbitration. Eliza held the letter between two fingers like it was toxic. She really doesn't know when to quit. I could see it in her eyes, the shift from patience to strategy. Eliza had faced warlords, arms traffickers, and rogue militias. Karen Strickland was small-time by comparison. But the rules of engagement here were more twisted. She's trying to trap us into a legal mess, I said, scanning the fine print. Force us to respond emotionally. Rack up fines, maybe even liens. Eliza nodded. Control through paper cuts. The following days became a chess match. Karen doubled down, taking photos of the Jeep, logging complaint after complaint with the HOA board, even following Eliza on her morning jogs, recording with her phone. But Eliza wasn't rattled. She started documenting everything, times, dates, interactions. We installed a new set of security cameras, catching Karen trespassing at least twice. Eliza spoke with a contact at the county clerk's office and obtained copies of HOA regulations and, more importantly, Karen's correspondence with the board. That's when we discovered something critical. Karen had been rewriting internal policy language without a full board vote in ethics violation. Eliza leaned over the kitchen table, eyes scanning the documents like blueprints. She thinks she's dealing with a housewife. She has no idea she's dealing with a federal strategist. She stood, rolled up the files, and looked me in the eye. Time to take the gloves off. Outside, Karen's porch light blinked on again. The war had just escalated. The following Monday, Elisa transformed the living room into a command center. Our mahogany dining table became a field desk littered with manila folders, a laptop synced to encrypted cloud storage, and a legal pad dense with bullet points. A large corkboard on the wall held a growing network of evidence: photos, notes, timeline, HOA documents, all connected by red string, like a federal case file. Karen had unknowingly declared war on someone trained to dismantle terrorist networks. Now, Eliza was applying those same skills to the HOA. She's altered HOA bylaws without a full quorum vote, Eliza said, flipping through scanned PDFs of past meeting minutes. And she used board authority to levy fines without the treasurer's approval. That's financial misconduct. She's also violating the harassment clause in the HOA charter, I added. There's a clear pattern. Eliza gave a curt nod. Then we exposed the pattern. Not with shouting through process. Well, Karen relied on intimidation and neighborhood gossip. Eliza deployed a different kind of resistance. Strategic exposure, where printed flyers detailing the HOA's actual rules, highlighting Karen's unauthorized edits. They weren't inflammatory, just factual. We delivered them door to door, attached to coffee gift cards labeled Read and Reflect. Within a week, whispers began. Neighbors started attending board meetings, ones Karen previously ran with little oversight. People asked questions now. They brought printouts. Karen wasn't prepared for scrutiny. She doubled down in desperation. She filed a new complaint claiming Eliza was storing weapons in the garage. 2 days later, a city code enforcement officer showed up, embarrassed and apologetic. Elisa walked him through the garage, which held nothing more than gardening tools, boxed gear, and a disassembled mountain bike. Sorry for the intrusion, he muttered. This came in anonymously. But the tone was unusual. Aggressive. Elisa smiled. You're not the first investigator who's been misled by someone in over their head. He left quietly. The same night, Elisa met with the Ashcroft Heights Veterans Committee. She'd been invited after news of her federal service spread through the neighborhood grapevine. A retired Navy SEAL chaired the group and welcomed her like a long-lost sister. The next day, we co-hosted a welcome home BBQ on our lawn, fully approved and permitted. It wasn't just a neighborhood gathering, it was a tactical social maneuver. Veterans, law enforcement, families, community leaders, nearly 50 people showed up, many bringing dishes and lawn chairs. Karen, watching from her blinds, had no idea the BBQ would make the local news. A reporter from Channel 12 aired a 30-second segment on Eliza's service and the warm welcome organized by local veterans. She interviewed Eliza, who humbly said, "I'm grateful to be home. My mission overseas was about disarming conflict. I'd love to do the same here." It wasn't just good PR, it was armor. Karen fumed. She stormed out mid-broadcast yelling about HOA violations for unauthorized public gatherings. But this time, no one backed her. Even the board secretary, A quiet man named Raymond shrugged her off. "I signed the event form myself," he said, loud enough for the crowd to hear. Karen retreated like a general without troops. The next morning, a cardboard box appeared on our doorstep. Inside, another violation letter, now citing community disruption, property devaluation, and unfounded character associations. But this one wasn't signed by the HOA board, it was signed by Karen alone. "She's going rogue," I muttered, reading it aloud. "She's isolating," Eliza said. "Classic authoritarian burnout. She's losing control and trying to tighten the noose." Eliza scanned the letter into her records and attached it to a formal grievance package she'd been preparing for county, reviewed it, misuse of authority, her harassment campaign, and documented violations of the HOA's operating charter. "Once I send this," Eliza said, "we force a hearing. If she doesn't back down, the board will have to vote, and we won't be the only ones demanding her removal." Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the oak tree near Karen's house. Her front door slammed shut. It was almost poetic. The next board meeting was only days away, and for the first time in years, it would be standing room only. By the time the HOA board meeting convened, the community clubhouse felt more like a courtroom than a neighborhood forum. Rows of folding chairs stretched wall to wall, every seat filled. Some residents stood at the back, arms crossed, faces tense with anticipation. Karen sat at the head table, flanked by board members who now shifted uncomfortably beside her. Her usual air of supremacy had frayed at the edges. The clipboard was still there, clutched tightly in her hands, like a lifeline, but her composure cracked as murmurs rippled through the crowd. Eliza entered with quiet precision. Dressed in a tailored navy blazer and jeans, she carried a slim briefcase, not for show but strategy. When she stepped forward to speak, the room fell into a hush, so complete it hummed. "I'm Eliza Brooks," she began, her voice calm but charged, "resident of Ashcroft Heights, former federal operations leader with the Department of Homeland Security. I've come here not as a soldier, but as a neighbor seeking to end a campaign of targeted harassment conducted under the guise of HOA authority." She placed a folder on the table in front of the board. Inside is documentation of 8 distinct violations of HOA charter, including unlawful fines, unauthorized policy changes, discriminatory reporting, and verbal harassment. The evidence includes audio, email threads, and surveillance footage. It's all time-stamped, witnessed, and legally admissible. A beat of silence. Then the gasps began. Karen tried to speak, but Eliza wasn't done. "This isn't just about me. Over the past 2 years, Mrs. Strickland has levied more complaints and citations than the last 3 HOA presidents combined. She's imposed fines without board review, rewrote rules without quorum, and encouraged neighbors to surveil each other under threat of penalty. This isn't community stewardship, it's abuse of power." Karen surged to her feet. "This is a setup. She's manipulating everyone. She's not even active military." Eliza turned toward her, steady as a tide. "Correct? I'm not active military. I'm a federally licensed operations director trained in counter-harassment and conflict escalation. So let's de-escalate." She faced the crowd. "I'm submitting a formal petition for Karen Strickland's immediate removal from the HOA board, citing breach of fiduciary duty, abuse of power, and conduct unbecoming a representative of this community." Silence. Then slowly, hands began to rise across the room. Raymond, the HOA secretary, cleared his throat and stood. "As per our bylaws, any petition with signatures from 30% of the community must trigger a special vote. We've already collected 52%. Karen's expression crumbled. Another board member, Sophia Alvarez, raised her hand. "I second the motion to remove Karen Strickland from the board, effective immediately. All in favor?" Raymond asked. A sea of hands. Karen sat down hard. Her mouth opened, then closed. No words came. Within minutes, the board formally voted to strip her of all leadership positions. She wasn't escorted out, no one needed to. She gathered her clipboard, turned to leave, and passed Eliza without a word. Eliza didn't gloat. She didn't smirk or boast. She simply looked down at the flag pin on her lapel, then back to the room. "I didn't come home looking for a fight," she said quietly. "But if one comes to my door, I'll meet it prepared, principled, and ready to defend what's right." The crowd rose in applause. In the weeks that followed, Ashcroft Heights changed. The new board, led by Sophia and Raymond, rolled back Karen's unauthorized policies. Fines were reviewed, harassment protocols were updated, and transparency became the norm. Eliza was invited to join the board. She declined. "I didn't come to govern," she told Sophia over coffee. "I came to live in peace." But people listened now when Eliza spoke, not out of fear but out of deep-earned respect. And Karen, her house went up for sale a month later quietly without fanfare. The listing didn't mention the HOA at all. The tactical Jeep still sits in our driveway, its tires washed, its flag fresh every morning. Eliza jogs past the spot where Karen once stood shouting threats. She doesn't look back. She doesn't have to. Because in Ashcroft Heights, the war is over, and this time, peace was earned the right way.